Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're putting on our dietitian hats and diving deep into the real relationship between red meat and our health. Now, don't worry, we're not going to just throw a bunch of dense medical jargon at you. Instead, we're going to translate all that molecular science into a highly practical, actionable advice that you can actually use in your kitchen. So if you've ever wondered what red meat does at a cellular level, and more importantly, how to enjoy it safely as part of a balanced diet, you are in exactly the right place. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the actual health risks of red meat, dive into the science of heme iron and inflammation, look at the hidden risks of how we cook it, and wrap up with a solid playbook of practical, everyday dietitian tips. All right, let's kick things off with a number I want you to burn into your memory: 71. Specifically, 71 grams. That is the World Cancer Research Fund's recommended daily limit for red meat. To put that into perspective, it's only about 2.5 ounces, which is surprisingly small. So what exactly happens inside our bodies if we're constantly blowing past that limit? Let's jump straight into Section 1 to find out the epidemiological health risks of red meat. When we look at the data from massive longitudinal studies, the results really don't pull any punches. Eating just 100 grams of unprocessed red meat a day, which remember is just a tiny bit over that 71-gram limit, is directly linked to an 11% increase in stroke, a 15% jump in cardiovascular mortality, a 17% increase in colorectal cancer, and a 19% increase in advanced prostate cancer. These numbers clearly establish the very real stakes of high red meat consumption. So, moving on to Section 2, let's zoom in on the cellular level to figure out the biological why. And the primary culprit? Heme iron. Heme iron is the very thing that gives red meat its signature color. It's incredibly easy for our bodies to absorb, which sounds great, right? Well, here is the catch. When heme iron hits the oxygen-free environment of our gut, it essentially acts like a lit match. It sparks a dangerous process called lipid peroxidation. Let's break down this biological cascade because it is fascinating. First, that heme iron reacts with the dietary fats in your gut. Step 2, this reaction generates toxic aldehydes, like one called 4-HNE. In step 3, those toxins literally latch onto your DNA and cause mutations in your healthy intestinal cells. But here is the scariest part. Step 4, these toxins wipe out your healthy cells, but somehow allow the mutated precancerous cells to survive and just hyperproliferate. It's a perfect storm. And the damage definitely compounds. Excess heme iron doesn't just mutate DNA, it completely wrecks the balance of your gut microbiome. It creates this inflammatory state that weakens your intestinal mucosal barrier, laying out a welcome mat for chronic diseases. Now, in Section 3, we're looking at another set of biological culprits: inflammation and saturated fats. Have you ever heard of new 5GC? It's a type of sugar molecule found in red meat. Interestingly enough, humans actually lost the gene to naturally produce this sugar during our evolution. But when we eat red meat, our cells absorb this foreign sugar anyway and incorporate it right into our own tissues. Because our bodies don't naturally make new 5GC, our immune system treats it like an alien invader. It launches a continuous attack on our own tissues that absorbed it. This immune battle causes xenociliitis, which is a chronic, low-grade inflammation. And research shows this inflammation directly accelerates the growth of intestinal polyps and tumors. Add saturated fats to that mix, and the problem escalates. Compounds in red meat, like palmitic acid, actively block insulin signaling and pack fat right into your liver. This is exactly the molecular pathway that hits the gas pedal on conditions like fatty liver disease and type 2 diabetes. Okay, let's shift gears in Section 4. We've talked about the meat itself, but there are massive hidden dangers in how we actually cook and process it. Your culinary technique is a real game changer here. On one hand, you have high-heat, open-flame grilling. When meat hits temperatures over 302 degrees Fahrenheit, it triggers pyrolytic reactions that create dangerous DNA-altering compounds. On the other hand, you have low-temp, moist heat, like braising, which safely melts collagen into tender gelatin without generating those toxins. Let's look at what those thermal mutagens actually are. First, heterocyclic amines, or HCAs, form when amino acids and sugars react under intense heat. Second, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs, form when fat drips onto hot coals, sending cancer-causing smoke right back up onto the surface of your steak. And the craziest part, once we eat them, our own liver enzymes accidentally convert them into highly active carcinogens. Then we have N-nitroso compounds, or NOCs. These are potent carcinogens that initiate colon cell deterioration. They come at us from two directions. Externally, they're formed from the sodium nitrites used to preserve processed meats like bacon and hot dogs. Internally, as we digest beef, our own body uses that heme iron as a catalyst to synthesize these exact same carcinogens right in our gut. I know, that was a lot of heavy molecular pathology. Take a breath. Our goal here isn't to scare you, it's to empower you. Once we understand these mechanisms, we can totally hack them. So the big question, how can we eat meat safely? This brings us to section 5, which is exactly why we're here. Let's look at the dietitian's practical playbook for your kitchen. First and most importantly, respect the baseline. Try to cap your intake of unprocessed red meat at 71 grams per day, or roughly 500 grams a week. And considering everything we just learned about NOx, you really want to strictly avoid highly processed meats. Portion control is literally your first line of defense. Next, you need to match your cooking method to the meat's anatomy. If you've got a tender, low-collagen cut, like a loin, you can use rapid dry heat. But for tough, high-collagen cuts like chuck or brisket, always go for a long, low-temp, moist braise. You get melt-in-your-mouth tenderness without relying on dangerous, mutagen-creating high heat. Now here is a brilliant hack for grilling season. Before you cook, marinate your meat in mixtures rich in acids or antioxidants. Think citrus, vinegar, or garlic. This acts as an invisible chemical shield. It significantly reduces the thermal reactions that create those dangerous HCAs and PAHs on the grill. But what if you're at a baseball game and you just absolutely want a hot dog? Use nutritional countermeasures. Pair that processed meat with foods rich in vitamin C and vitamin E. This biochemical trick actively inhibits the nitrization reaction in your gut, literally blocking the formation of those carcinogenic NOCs. One final, super simple mechanical tip, always slice coarse-grained cuts, like flank steak, against the grain. Slicing perpendicular to the muscle fibers physically shortens them, which instantly turns a tough cut into a perfectly tender bite, which means you don't have to overcook it just to make it chewable. From the 71-gram limit and the cellular chaos of heme iron, all the way to defensive marinating strategies, we've covered a lot of ground today. So I'll leave you with this. Next time you're planning your meals or firing up the grill, how will you use this molecular science to craft a healthier, more balanced plate? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer, and we will catch you next time.